People say I talk about some weird stuff, some far out stuff. But how about that chair that you're sitting in isn't solid? How weird is that? This reality is nothing like we think it is.
When I saw what Icke is doing, I was a bit jealous on him. Wow, look at what this guy's doing.
I don't know if anybody else could do it but him, actually.
We are in a period now where speaking your truth is not just important, it's utterly crucial to where humanity goes from here. The world needs renegades, and it needs them now. You remember maybe a couple of weeks ago, the American government, i.e. Donald Trump in this case, publicly supported and recognized the Golan Heights, which are Syrian territory, being absorbed into Israel, because Israel has been occupying the Golan Heights for a long time after one of the wars. And so this move to turn the Golan Heights officially to Israel is something that's met with a lot of opposition, obviously, but of course Trump's owned by Israel, so you'd expect him to go ahead and do that. But this is an interesting story, kind of related to that. Actually it's not related. I mean, it's just a coincidence, really. Grand Theft Syria. Cynthia McKinney, the former congresswoman, exposes Golan Heights oil interests in the White House. And this is what she did a few years ago, which kind of becomes very relevant now because of the recognition of the Golan Heights. And basically, there is a company that has been drilling for oil in the Golan Heights, water too, I think. And who's on the board? Dick Cheney, Jacob Rothschild, Rupert Murdoch, James Woolsey is a former CIA director and a big neocon, Bill Richardson, former energy secretary in the United States, Larry Summers, former Treasury Secretary, and a deeply unpleasant piece of work. And they're on the board of a company called Genie Energy that's been drilling for oil in the Golan Heights. And all this is just a coincidence. When are the alternative media that supported Trump going to actually say, we messed up? Because this guy is such a front man, it's unbelievable. And how they fell for it is a shocker. North Korea. Trump wrecked summit with Kim, suggesting North Korea gives all its nuclear weapons to the US, according to a report. You know, they had this recent meeting again, this second meeting between the Korean leader Kim and Trump, and it all went pear-shaped when Kim said we're not having it. It turned out, according to this first story, I'll come to the real story in a second, that Trump had, during those negotiations, had suddenly handed Kim this demand, and Kim said, "Well, up yours, mate. See you later." This first story from 6 days ago, this was blamed on Trump. But if we go to a more recent story, the real background comes to light. Reuters confirms that John Bolton, the National Security Advisor, torpedoed the Hanoi summit. And of course, he is Israel's man in the White House, and he's the neocons man in the White House, which is basically the same thing. John Bolton. And again, here's a man in Trump who claimed that during his election campaign that he wanted to stop America intervening and messing in the affairs of other countries. And then, of course, he's got into power and done exactly that, because he's just a puppet and a liar and a fraud, just like Obama before him. And so this is the story. An explosive report by Reuters confirms that John Bolton sabotaged the denuclearization talks between Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump in Hanoi in February, according to a March 29 exclusive by journalists Leslie Rawton and David Brunstrom. They said Donald Trump handed North Korean leader Kim Jong-un a piece of paper demanding that Kim surrender all his nuclear weapons and bomb fuel to the United States. Trump also added a number of unrelated demands, including fully dismantling all chemical and biological warfare programs and ballistic missiles, launchers, and associated facilities. Trump surprised Kim by demanding complete unilateral disarmament in exchange for a flimsy promise to lift economic sanctions sometime in the future. Naturally, Kim rejected the offer because, of course, it was an offer that was meant to be refused. It's very simple. If you want to scupper an agreement, and of course Bolton does because his masters tell him to, then you just make demands you know the other side simply cannot accept. And then you say, oh no, it broke down because he wouldn't accept what we wanted. And from the same article comes this. The document appeared to represent John Bolton's long-held and hardline Libya model of denuclearization that North Korea has rejected repeatedly. North Koreans rejected Bolton's repeated demands for it to follow a denuclearization model under the components of Libya's nuclear program that was shipped to the United States in 2004. 7 years after a denuclearization agreement was reached with the United States and Libya's leader, Colonel Gaddafi, the United States took part in a NATO-led military operation against his government, and he was overthrown by rebels, American-funded rebels, and killed. And, you can understand, for all his failings, and my God, he has a lot, of this guy, Kim, who has looked on and saw the Libya model, whereby they give up their nuclear weapons, give them across to the United States, and then the United States come in and take the country over because they know they're not going to be hit by anything that they can't deal with. And of course, Kim's looking at that and saying they're going to play that with me, which is correct. Bolton presented Kim with an offer he knew Kim would reject, the same offer that led to the destruction of Libya and the savage murder of Gaddafi. Bolton wanted the talks to fail so he could push for tougher sanctions that would pave the way for regime change, which is on the list of the Neocons, of course, of the Project for the New American Century in September 2000. That was his goal. Kim's nuclear weapons were never the target. They were merely the pretext for intensifying the economic strangulation, the relentless belligerence, and threats of war. John Bolton is nothing more than the enforcer of the playground bully. The enforcer is a little boy in short trousers who has no power himself, but struts around with his chin out, as if he has power, because his power is basically being the gopher for the bully. And that just about sums up John Bolton. What's happening in Venezuela is just another example of this, of course, and the story is moving on with miraculous coincidence at a time when the American government is trying to overthrow the government of Venezuela to install their own puppet, this guy Juan Guaido. And suddenly, out of nowhere, the electricity grid of Venezuela starts failing, because the idea is, when you're going for one of these coups, is to impose sanctions and any other suffering you can instigate, like shutting electricity down, because you want to make the population suffer while you tell the world you're doing it for humanitarian reasons, to create unrest among the population so they'll support the overthrow of the government. It's not worked yet in Venezuela, because I think a lot of people there have sussed the situation. Anyway, there was a good article on davidicke.com this week by Stephen Lenman, one of the regular writers at davidicke.com, the guest writers. He writes some good stuff, and he's written this article. So far, Trump regime hardliners ruled out direct military intervention in Venezuela, concerned over its sophisticated air defense capabilities. Russian S-300s are installed and operating at strategic locations in the country, able to down multiple hostile fourth and fifth generation aircraft, ballistic and cruise missiles, as well as other aerial targets at high or low altitudes up to 155 miles away with great accuracy. Venezuela has at least 6 installations in place, each able to strike multiple aerial targets simultaneously. A Pentagon attack on the country would be extremely costly. No ground invasion will happen without air cover. It's believed Russian personnel in Venezuela are installing the latest S-300 upgrades, assuring they've got the state-of-the-art. The US fears that they can take out its advanced F-35 warplanes if used against targets where these systems are operating. Since March the 7th, Trump regime sabotage on Venezuela's electrical grid occurred multiple times, creating nationwide and partial blackouts. The latest attack on Friday was reported caused by a Caracas area El Avila Simon Rodriguez substation explosion. Guaido admitted he was directly involved in the incident and earlier ones. His actions, along with other anti-government elements, are orchestrated by Washington. And Global Research quoted his following remarks from VTV, translated from Spanish, saying, he told the world that he and other anti-government elements are behind this devious and terrorist attack against the electrical system in an interview on Punto de Excentro broadcast this week, adding the cessation of darkness will definitely come. When Maduro is toppled, there will be no solution to the electrical problem until then. There will be no water to the houses, much less domestic gas. We will generate the necessary internal pressure to add up to this process of definitive cessation of the usurpation. But you see, in any other situation, someone admitting that and someone doing what Guaido's doing would be arrested. But the Americans want him arrested because he's just a puppet. They don't care about him, because they'll try to use the arrest as pretext for invasion or overthrow. But how this will turn out, we'll see. But Venezuela is a lot more canny than some of the other places targeted by America, and with Russia's support, which they clearly have, and China as well. It's not so easy this time around for the Americans just to walk in, the American government to walk in, and just take over. And another development in Venezuela in the last few days, Venezuela's Constituent Assembly strips opposition leader Guaido of immunity. Venezuela's National Constituent Assembly has backed a Supreme Court request to strip Juan Guaido of his immunity, paving the way for possible legal proceedings against the US-backed opposition leader, calling for regime change. The decision to revoke Guaido's immunity, which he has held as a head of the opposition-controlled National Assembly, came a day after Venezuela's Supreme Court of Justice urged the ANC lawmakers to take action against the self-proclaimed interim president, as he stands accused of inciting violence and engaging in illicit financial activity. But as I say, in many ways, the government of America actually would kind of welcome that as an excuse to to up the ante against Venezuela.
The world needs renegades, and it needs them now.